When I was in college, I was intrigued by a God that seemed unbridled by the logic of this world and by a community of Christians who added abundant love and beauty to the world. About a year after becoming Christian, I encountered a daunting and haunting line of scripture. In Matthew 19:21, Jesus said that to make yourself complete and mature and to have treasures in heaven, you need to rid yourself of earthly possessions. At one point, I brought up my anxieties about this passage with a friend, and she assured me that I needn't take the scripture literally. Still, I knew what Jesus said and to not take it lightly. I think I was in my 20s when I joined my first church and began tithing. When I learned that some Christians gave 10% of their earnings to God, I began tithing 10% of my gross income. While I figured that God wouldn't mind if I tithed 10% of my net income, I didn't want to hold back, and I chose to tithe from my gross earnings. I automate my tithe, so I neither have to think about my tithe nor miss it. Like everyone, my walk with God is imperfect, so this nudges me to do better with minimal effort. Fast forward to October 2025, when I looked at our church's statement of activities. Under general offerings, givers of record, I saw a modest level of tithes received. A few calculations revealed that I am an accidental mogul of the church. But really, for years I've attended church meetings and I've read the weekly prayer bulletin, so I've known that we've needed to be frugal and faithful with church finances. I'd assumed that societal declines in church attendance and inflation were the culprits, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Bear with me as we do a little math. As of April 29th, 2025, our church has 258 active members. If only half of these members have an income equivalent to full-time employment at the minimum wage of $16.50 an hour, let's assume that their annual net income is $26,000. If these 129 members then tithe 10% of their net income, the church should receive $28,000 every month. It doesn't. As stewards of God's resources, our tithes serve as a form of worship. They allow our church to minister to the needs in our community, and they allow our community to learn about God through our church. By returning to God what belongs to God, we invest in an eternal kingdom, entrusting our todays and our tomorrows with God. In college, I was struck by a fascinating story about some guy who tithed. When he got a promotion or a higher paying job, rather than increase his take-home pay, he increased his tithe. I remember thinking, sure, but for how long? No one wants to live like a poor college student all their lives. So what happens when he gets married, when he has kids? I don't know what happened to him, but I hope that he continued to tithe cheerfully, guided by faith and not by rules. Matthew 19:21-22 tells us that to be complete and to have treasures in heaven, we must rid ourselves of our possessions and give to the poor. This distressed the eager and rich young man greatly. I also don't know what happened to him, but I hope he grew to tithe generously.